Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Plekenpol. I'm the lead pastor here at Wells Branch Community Church, and I'm so glad that all you guys are here. We are right in the middle of a series called Margin, and margin is where we've been talking about specifically with our time and with our money. And so last week, we started off our introduction to money, and we got everybody involved in our Financial Peace University community group. And to tell you guys, this is pretty exciting news. We have 225 people involved in one of these Financial Peace University classes, which is pretty great. I mean, it is really exciting to see that. And what we're trying to do with our money and with our time is to develop margin, because ultimately what happens is that in our lives, we live in such crisis mode. We are a culture of crisis, aren't we? We live it to the max, whether it's with our money. Most of us live paycheck to paycheck, but also with our time. And we know this because, I mean, how many of you guys knock out most of your emails in the bathroom? Or you've gone to a bathroom, you're sitting down, you're doing your thing, and then there's a guy knocking out a sales call in the stall next to you. You guys ever seen that? Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, we are such a culture that lives every moment, every minute where we are plugged in, and it's kind of like like we live in the now so much that we're distracted from the reality of what is going in and around us. You might be doing your texting, your emails in the bathroom, but you might be doing your texting and your emails while you're driving, right? That's why we have 3,000 people die a year because of distracted driving. We have 420,000 plus people who get injured because of distracted driving, because we are seeking constant input. I mean, when you get in your car, you turn on the radio, you turn on a podcast, you turn on the music, and you're going, and you're in the moment with whatever that song is, whatever the political show you're listening to, and tomorrow 100 million people are going to tune into the debate. That's going to be interesting. We are going to have so many people, so many things are coming into our brains, into our minds, and we never have a moment where we have margin in our mind. And we're Christians. I'm talking to Christians primarily. So if you're not a Christian, you can go like, you guys are weird, and we're cool with that. Our primary time slot, when our best use of us, should be going to Jesus, right? And what I mean by that is we need to have some time where we get alone with him to listen to him. But for most of us, we live in the crisis, so there's so many crises, which we can kind of identify as like, I'm doing this for you, Jesus, so just hang on. I'll get to you after I fix all these other people, or I get all this work done, or I get all this stuff done. And we find ourselves using Jesus as a crutch, which is why a lot of atheists think of us as having Jesus as a crutch, because we only lean on him when things go really bad. That's where we get that reputation from. So if you don't spend time with Jesus on a daily basis, then it's going to come off as hypocrisy when you say, just cry out to Jesus, he'll take care of you. Now, it's true, he will. But wouldn't it be wiser, and doesn't it make our walk more fervent and more real and more powerful when we cry out to Jesus daily and we sit at his feet and listen? All right. So this morning, we're going to be walking through what it is to be distracted from sitting at the feet of Jesus by good things, by great things like ministry. You could be distracted from Jesus by doing stuff for Jesus. You can be distracted from Jesus by doing really great things like work. You can be distracted from Jesus by taking care of children. You can be distracted from Jesus by a lot of different things. And so my heart this morning is we would learn how to sit at the feet of Jesus. And the way that I know I get distracted is that even in my distractions, I get distracted about my distractions. And let me sort of explain that. How many guys come up at the end, like, because, we're a culture that watches Netflix, Hulu, what have you, Amazon Fire. What we do is we'll watch, and then when a show is about, like, you're coming up on like the second to third last episode, you sort of freak out, don't you? You're like, what am I going to watch? What am I going to do? In fact, I have a video that's a commercial that I wanted to show you that just kind of shows how addicted to input that we are. Watch this. Did you hear that? Salvation, right? Like, don't worry. The salvation is here. We have unlimited distractions, so you never actually have to think about anything but another reality that isn't your own life. I mean, that is where we live. And so I wanted us to get to a place, and I think God wants us to get to a place, and our elders have called us to get to a place where freedom from the distraction of the culture. I'm not saying don't watch, football. But what I am saying is that you've got to put a priority and make margin so that Jesus is first. Okay? That's where we're going. All right, so we're going to be in Luke chapter 10. If you don't have a Bible, raise your hand in the air and wave it like you care, and a Bible will come to you. If you don't have a Bible at all, this is our gift to you. If you keep borrowing our Bibles and take them home by accident, bring them back, because those aren't cheap. All right, so anyway, we're going to keep going with this. We're going to be in Luke chapter 10. We're going to start at verse 38. And what I want you to kind of see is that Jesus this story is such a random story. This is why I love the Bible. It's not just like you're going to get an important truth out of it, but this is like a random story of Jesus breaking up an argument between two sisters. Like, I don't know how many of you guys have sisters. My wife has a sister. They argue like champs. And I won't go into stories of Adrian pushing or shoving her sister into a wall while we're on a event together, but whatever. There's this moment where it's just you get into a family drama that is like, how could this be in the Bible? But it's in the Bible because it's going to show us some really deep truth. All right, here we go. We're going to be in Luke chapter 10, starting at verse 38. And the Bibles we passed out, that's on page 869. Here we go. Now, as they went on their way, so Jesus is traveling to Jerusalem. He has set his face toward Jerusalem, knowing that he's going to die on the cross for the sins of the world and be raised from the dead. And so he set his face towards Jerusalem, and they're going to enter a village, which we'll later know as Bethany, because that's where Mary and Martha live. And a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. Now, I want you to highlight some things. We'll highlight different colors. It'll be kind of like your K. Arthur moment, for those of you who know that is 50 years ago. All right. And so Martha welcomes him. And you're like, okay, big deal. No. In this culture, I want you to understand that when you went to travel, you put yourself at great danger and risk. Jesus and the 12 disciples are traveling, and they may have there's a little bit more than just the 12 that's going with them. And so they're a band of merry men and women, and they're cruising through the area heading towards Jerusalem. And whenever you travel, you could be robbed. There's always different things that could happen to you. It's bad news traveling. So welcoming a traveler was a big deal. So Martha got the welcoming committee. She and Mary are getting the house ready. This is a big deal. And if you don't do this right, it's like a disgrace for your family. Okay, so there's a little bit of pressure to pull this thing off well. All right, this isn't like grilled cheese sandwiches for everybody. You're good to go. This is, we kind of want to make a real deal meal, kill the fatted calf. Jesus is showing up. All right, here we go. So a woman named Martha welcomed him, and she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. Now, Martha gets the yellow, Mary gets the green. You'll see why in a second. But Mary, she sits at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. Now, I want you to see this because Mary is doing something really, really, really progressive. Like when we read that, the only thing that's sort of weird is she's sitting on the floor and she's not on a couch, a desk, or a beanbag. Like you're thinking, what are you, sitting on the floor, a little odd. No, it's everybody's sitting on the floor because they didn't have IKEA, okay? So they're all on the floor. And so what happens is Mary is taking the role of a disciple. And in this culture, that's what men do. Women don't drive, women don't vote, women don't testify in court. I mean, we're talking, this is like ancient times. Women have their role, and that's in the kitchen, all right? I'm just saying that's where that comes from, a little awkward moment. That's in this day, that's what it was. But Mary does something really odd, and she just says, I'm going to sit at the feet of Jesus, and I want to learn, just like all these other smelly dudes, about what Jesus is all about. So I want you to see that. Mary is taking on, in a sense, an equality moment with men when it comes to sitting at the feet of Jesus. But Martha was distracted. Now, with much serving, what was she distracted from? What was Martha distracted from? It's highlighted, so this is like easy one. From welcoming Jesus. She got distracted from welcoming because she was serving him. Do you see that? You guys know how this goes. At least men in general probably get this. At least I know I do. All right, so let's just say, for instance, in a hypothetical world, I was to do something really sweet and generous for Adrian, okay? That's my wife. And let's say in this hypothetical world, I said, you know what, I went and bought tickets to like the Hillside Theater at Zilker because she likes, theater and like musicals and, people spending hours singing and and you just live in that brutal world and somebody likes that, right? So let's pretend that was your thing. And then, after that, I brought like I made dinner, in like a little picnic basket so we could take it there and sneak it in because you're not allowed to have food there, but whatever. And so you do that. And then, so on the way, she's like, let's just go get a piece of pizza. And that's what this would be the typical reaction of me. Why? Because I'd be like, don't you understand why I just bought tickets to the really beautiful Shakespearean Hillside Theater at Zilker Park? How don't you even care? What's wrong with you? Right? And what that reveals, right, when you do something, because we all have been there, guys, right? I want the credit. So I get distracted from giving you a great time because I need you to tell me how great I am and that I am awesome. Because that's what that really is about. You guys with me? Because who goes and watches? Never mind, I won't go there. All right, so like that's sort of like this thing. It's like, hey, Martha's in the kitchen and she's working and she's like, yo, Jesus, glad you're here. And she's working. She's like, man, Jesus is gonna love this. Where's Mary? This thing is falling apart. Who's on the cabbage? For crying out loud, Mary, get on that thing. There's this reality of like the frustration. The kitchen's overwhelming and she's distracted in the welcoming because she's serving. And she went up to Jesus in the middle of him teaching, right? So Mary's already going, oh, yeah, that's great. And she's taking notes. And, she's got like a whole like binder of notes from her Jesus times. And there's Martha stomps up there, walks up to the front of the room in front of all the men. And you can see Peter going like, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. All right. And she went up to him and said, Lord, do you not care? All the disciples are like, scoot away, scoot away, scoot away. Do you not care? Right, so right now, this is, what are you, a mind reader, Martha? I mean, like, so what you're saying is that Jesus doesn't care about you. Thank you, that appropriate response. That was wonderful. So what you're saying, Martha, is that Jesus, who, created the world, designed everybody, is about to go to the cross and die, be raised from the dead. You don't get all that right now. I get that. But he is coming. He's healing people. He's doing miracles all over the place. He's like a rock star, and he's chosen to hang out at your house. And now you're going to tell him he doesn't care about you. So you're going to judge his motive. And then, even better, this is what's more fun. Do you not care that my sister has left me? I'm sitting here all alone in the kitchen. Look at all this stuff I got to do, and I'm doing it for you. You don't even care. Tell her then to help me. Do you see this? So she goes from telling Jesus how he's feeling to commanding him and telling him what to do. Oh, this is hitting home for a lot of people, right? We do this. We do this. And what the problem is Martha was distracted from welcoming Jesus. She was completely in her own world, and she was in her own crisis. You with me? She had a crisis. She had a meal to prepare. Maybe the disciples brought some extra buddies. And I don't know if any of you wives, like someone, hey, brought some of the buddies home. And they bring it, they come in and like, she's like, how am I going to make this food? How am I going to get this going? Someone better say hey to Jesus because I don't have time for that. We got to get this thing cranking because this is Jesus. And she's going on the, 7-course meal. And she's freaking out. And she's losing her mind. And she's distracted. And I wonder, because this is the part where we can't really judge Martha, can we? Because our culture is Martha. The constant crisis, the constant everything is a disaster. Your adjectives are, it's terrible, I don't know what we're going to do, this is horrible. We live in that world. And I think that when it comes to, like, as Christians, we should have time alone with Jesus, shouldn't we? I mean, like, that's like a thing. Like, that's what we do. In fact, part of our member covenant is that we read the Bible regularly and we pray to Jesus. Like, that's a part of what we do. But here's what happens for a lot of us. Our Bible's on our phone, and so we're reading, like, I'm going to read the Bible. And then a notification from, like, a text message or a Facebook or something, and you just like, oh, I'll check that out. And if you're a single guy, a girl texts, and you're like, and you just have a 30-minute quiet time with that girl. But that's what happens, right? Because we get so distracted. Things can interrupt us. Things can kind of get in the way. And the one moment we're supposed to be having time with Jesus, and then we get mad at Jesus because the way our circumstances are going and that things didn't turn out right. The relationship's not going the way I wanted. The job's not going the way I wanted. And he's saying, maybe because you're prioritizing that relationship or that job ahead of me. Do you see that? That is where we live in the crisis culture. And I think that what we're seeing and the reflection of that is that we need to go to Jesus in a non-crisis. And the way we do that is by getting margin. And what I mean by that is, you've heard people, I just need to make some time, carve out some time for Jesus. It's as if, time's already taken up and you just don't know what you're going to do, and you got to somehow whittle it out of the air. Got to get this time out because there's other people. But you actually have the ability to control your schedule, turns out. But the problem is we treat Jesus like the ultimate flexible client. You guys know what I'm talking about? The person that can be moved around anywhere. And so for the guy that's just he's a, what's the right word for it? Jerk. And you don't miss your time meeting with that guy. You show up on time, and you present well, you come prepared, you're engaged the whole time, you put your phone away. How come that guy gets your best time and Jesus gets the leftovers? Let's keep moving. That's going to get awkward. So verse 41, Jesus is going to give a little bit of a gentle rebuke here. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha. I love this. This is Jesus. I mean, he's in his 30s, but he's old as before dirt. I mean, the guy is, he created the universe eternity past, right? So he's not like Martha's peer. He's like Martha's ancient dad, right? It's hard to understand, but just hang with me. And the reason why I get this is when he says, Martha, Martha, this is this tenderness that rolls off of his lips. It reminds me when my son Austin, or Jet, but mainly Austin right now, throws a tantrum. Anyone else have toddlers that throw tantrums? Okay, yeah, there we go. I see that hand. All right, what happens is when your kid freaks out, okay, your kid starts screaming and they lose their mind because their current circumstances have just gone I want the green cup! Why does Jet have the green cup? I want the green cup! And you're like, green or blue, it does not matter. Just put the liquid in your face, right? You see. And so in that moment, you got to remove the tantrum thrower from the scene. And he's like, ah, 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 and he's screaming all sorts of, baby obscenities. And then you get down at the couch and you kind of grip, I grip Austin's face and I go, Austin, Austin. And he's going, look me in the eye, Austin, Austin. Once we make eye contact and he hears his name, breathe. Breathe. this world is so flustering. We're so anxious. And Martha, Martha, you are so anxious and troubled about many things. Breathe, Martha. Because Martha's distracted, and she needs to be rebuked because she's pointing at her sister. She's in the ultimate victim mentality. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like when you're looking around like, it's not fair, not fair. Look, she's not helping. She gets to sit there and act like a man sitting in the front row doing discipleship stuff. Why can't I be doing that? Or more importantly, she needs to be here with me doing what I told her to do. You see, that's what happens. So she's in this constant comparison, okay? She's checking up, Mary's Facebook status updates, and, her life's always glorious, and she gets angry every time she looks at it. And, she hasn't gained weight. She just has to, she eats like all ever she wants, and she's just, thin as a rail looking at Jesus. And so here is Martha, and she's caught in this comparison victim mentality, and she's stuck because she can't get into the contemplative life. Do you guys know what I mean when I say contemplative life? That means like you're not doing a task, you're sitting there thinking. Okay, in the army, officers, their role was to like think about stuff and write orders and tell people what to do. Soldiers' job was to do stuff, to execute orders. But a soldier would always be like, what do you guys do all day? I mean, what do you do? And for the most part, they were right. We were just kind of hanging out, chilling. But we had margin to think about what the mission was and how the long-term goals and how we're going to reach it and what we're going to do, our maintenance plans, our training plans, our logistic plans. We always had to be thinking long-term and be objective about what was going on right now, whereas the soldier kind of was just like, got to get this engine fixed, got to get this report done. I mean, it was constantly stressful in the daily moment. But if you have everybody just focus on the daily thing that's the crisis of the moment, nobody's looking forward. Eventually, you're going to hit a wall. And I think that's how most of us are living our lives. We never take a step back and an executive level look and get contemplative about what our life is and what our meaning and our purpose is. You with me? I had I'm going to get sort of personal here because I might be reading your mind here in a second, so hang with me. A couple years ago, I was doing ministry in Colorado, and it was the first time that this sort of thing happened, but after this happened, it would happen repeatedly. It's happened at this church. And this guy named Tom, he was investigated by the FBI. His brother, he actually brought a bomb to University of Oklahoma and was caught before he could blow up the stadium. And so the FBI would come, and that was one of the things that was part of his issue. The FBI was tapping his phone and all sorts of stuff. So he was one of those guys that they're watching us, but they really were. And so he made some threats, he made some bad decisions, and then he went to prison, federal prison. All right. And throughout this whole time, he would come up to me, and I'd try to minister to him this time. He'd say, "Chris, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Look at my life. Look at all the stuff that's happened to me. Look at all these other people. Look at all." And it was just it was a constant comparison. And he would say, I want you to hear this one phrase, "What am I supposed to do?" Because I've heard it in marriages. I've heard it at jobs. I've heard it at church. I've heard it in relationships that go bad. What am I supposed to do? And if you don't know the answer to that question, you'll be in that constant spiral. And I don't know if you'll end up in a federal pen, but your life is going to spiral out of control. And as much as you want Jesus to be on the throne, until you can grasp the "what am I supposed to do" answer, you're going to get stuck. Because this is what's going on with Martha. She's anxious and troubled, and she's spiraling here. She's spiraling. She can't function. She can't focus. She's having a grown-up tantrum. And this is why Jesus rebukes her. The Lord rebuked Martha for her distracted welcome by her serving. She was doing good things, and then she goes, what am I supposed to do? Look at her. And then this last line by Jesus puts it all in perspective, and it answers the question of what am I supposed to do? It answers that question of like the task-oriented, living in the now people who need a contemplative perspective that's broader than getting the next crisis over with. Okay, here it is. Watch this last verse. But one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. So what's the one thing that's necessary? What's this one thing? Sitting at the feet of Jesus is this one thing. And here's the problem. The Martha person would say, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Just sit there? Like, what? Mary doesn't do anything. Mary's not working. Because when she's sitting there, there's someone in the background who's actually doing it. Me. I'm the linchpin of this whole organization right now. You take me out of it, it all falls apart. And that's the problem with Martha types. They really, really, really believe it, that if they're not there, the whole thing's going to fall apart. And so the question you got to ask yourself, are you trying to keep Jesus' church up? Are you trying to keep your whole work up? Are you trying to keep your whole relationship up? Are you trying to keep your kids surviving like it's as if it's like in complete control of you? Or are you sitting at the feet of Jesus, right? Because this is where, that's where you get commendation. Like, I love this, right? Martha's standing in front of the disciples with Jesus, pointing at her sister. Get her back in the kitchen, Jesus. Let her know where she belongs. And then Jesus is like, whoa, you're out of control, Martha. She's doing the right thing. And Jesus defends her. Oh, that to me is beautiful. Jesus is defending her. There's another time that Jesus defends her. I want you to see this. It's towards the end of the story when Jesus is about to be crucified. Jesus comes back through Bethany, and he's hanging out at the house, and Mary comes, and she anoints him with nard and oil and wipes her hair with his feet, and like Judas is over there going like, I mean, he had a Martha issue too. Like, we could have given all that money to the poor. What's she doing? And Jesus stands up and is like, listen, no, listen. You don't get it. What Mary is doing will not be taken from her. She's preparing me for burial. And this is the part where I think that Mary actually knew that. Like no other disciple, like, remember when Jesus, he said, he goes to Peter, you're the rock, you're Peter, and on this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail. And Peter's like, yeah, I am. And then like 2 seconds later, Jesus is like, so I'm about to be taken down to Jerusalem. They're going to kill me. And then 3 days later, I'll be raised from the dead. And Peter's like, no. And then Jesus calls Peter Satan. Remember that part? It's that thing where Jesus confronts him because he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand that, like, he wants to edit out. I'll just block the part where you die out. But for some reason, Mary is hearing that. And with her tears, she wets the nard. She's crying over him. She's pouring the stuff all over him. She's anointing him. And I think she gets it. I think she's heard the message. Everybody else is tuning like, all right, Jesus reigning over everybody. I like that part. Jesus dying. Skip it. He must not really mean that. He must mean like die to yourself. It's like one of those metaphors. But she got it because she could hear. And I think the difference between Mary and Martha is so concerned about herself that she's so looking around at her circumstances and notices how unfair everything is. But Mary just has her eyes fixed on Jesus, and she can hear, and her heart goes through a show hole experience whenever she thinks she's going to lose Jesus. She needs him. Like, that's her existence. She's not waiting for the next Hawaii Five-0 episode. She's waiting for the next episode and time with Jesus as she sits at the feet of Jesus. And I think this is where I want you me to go. Because you're like, but Chris, she just sits there. She doesn't do anything. No, she does do something. Look at this. Mary just knew when to put serving down. And I think this is the point for a lot of us. Look, remember, this is Martha. She went up to him and said, Lord, don't you care? My sister has left me, because she was with her, helping her serve, to serve alone. Tell her then to help me. So Mary, there was a point in time in which Mary was with Martha, and they're working in the kitchen. They're doing their thing. She's helping out. Jesus shows up. She's like, hey, Martha, I think we're good here. Let's go in and sit at the feet of Jesus. And Martha's like, no, we're going to make this thing perfect. And Mary's like, I think you're missing it. And it could have gone this way. No, Mary, do what I say. In a sense, sit at my feet and listen to me, because I'm going to get some freaking credit around here, because we're going to pull off an event like Jesus has never seen before. And he's going to go every town and be like, Martha is the best cook, and her house is awesome to stay at. Though she'll be singing songs about me. But she has the guts and the fortitude and the non-people pleaser thing where she just goes, no, I'm drawing a boundary with you. I'm creating some margin with you right here. I love you. You're my sister. You're my older sister. But Jesus takes precedence. And she goes and sits at Jesus' feet. Because a lot of people are going to be asking you to do a lot of things. Did you know that? Like when you have instant notifications of everything and everybody's needs all the time, you're going to a lot of people being really needy all the time. But if your need of Jesus isn't met, you're going to be ministering out of obligation and frustration, right? We're doing National Night Out. Okay, National Night Out. The cool thing with these things on your chair, you're supposed to take these, write your name on it and go and meet your neighbors, all right? Before you go and meet your neighbors and invite them over to your house for our October 4th barbecue at your house, I want you to spend some time with Jesus, because I want Jesus at your barbecue before your neighbors. Because if we get in the habit of just doing more stuff, we're going to find ourselves bitter, and we're going to hate our neighbors. And we're going to be whining about how everyone's left me to serve alone. And you're going to resent the person 3 seats over because they're just on Facebook while you were listening to the message, for crying out loud. They don't even care. And you're so worried about what everybody else is doing as opposed to worry about what God is doing in you. You with me? That's that singular focus that Mary had that I want us to have. And so the question that I want us to get back to is this, is what's distracting you from sitting at the feet of Jesus? And if it's your phone, I'm just, my precious, you and Gollum are hanging out. I don't know what's going on. Some of you looked at your phone, you didn't even look at your email, you just went like this, you thumbed it. You go, Huh. You didn't even look at anything. You're so addicted to the thing. Put the phone down. And maybe you need to pick up an actual thing. This is called a book. All right? And it doesn't have notifications or badges or icons. You can actually read it, and you can put other things down, and God will speak to you through this, as well as through this. It just won't be in audio form. All right? I need us, God needs us to do this. And I'm not like the saint over here. There are times when I go to read my Bible, because I've got the, Bible in a year plan, and as I'm going to click on the app, a text message will show up, and I'll get sucked into work just like you guys will. But it's a discipline, and here's the way this works. This question, what's distracting you from sitting at the feet of Jesus? I want you to get with the person who knows you the best. I want you to get with your spouse, all right? So Adrian, I want you to be thinking, I know it's going to take you really hard, long time to think about what might distract me from sitting at the feet of Jesus, but just try. And I want you to get with your spouse. I want you to ask this question of them. What distracts me from sitting at the feet of Jesus? And I want you to hear them without the nuh-uh. Because you're going to get defensive, okay? And if you're single people, you have a discipleship group or a community group, I want you to go, hey, what do you think is distracting me from sitting at the feet of Jesus? And they'll probably ask you, what do you sit in the feet at? You'll be like, well, I sit at the feet of Netflix. I sit at the feet of fantasy football. I sit at the feet of my social media. I sit at the feet of Snapchat. I sit at the feet of politics and news and stock market. I sit at the feet of everything going on in the culture. And they'll say, listen, no one's going to be trying to be a legalist here. They're going to say, sit first at the feet of Jesus. Because then everything else, listen to me, everything else will fall into place. If you sit first at the feet of Jesus, he'll take care of it. I know this is, we're going to learn this through giving. Like when you give to God, this is crazy. He always takes care of you. There's never been a Christian who has tithed once I've ever met that was like, yeah, God didn't come through. He just didn't provide for me. He just, he hung me out to dry. I just haven't met that guy. He might be out there. I haven't met him. If you're that person, come talk to me afterwards. We'll, write a book about it. But there's also never been a person I've ever met that said, I just spend too much time with Jesus. I just can't get anything done. Haven't met that guy either. Because when you spend time with Jesus, and this is, it's been amazing for me to kind of implement this in my own world, sermons get done somehow. Like God, I'm like racking my brain. What am I going to say? And I'm just going to spend some time with Jesus. He gives me the words. He gives me what he's speaking to me, and then I share it with you. And I want you to have that sort of closeness with him so that when you hear from the Lord, you can share it with somebody and get excited. And it isn't just that crisis moment of like, I'm leaning on the crutch again because I haven't been to church in God knows how long. But you can't even begin to comprehend and understand what Jesus wants from you or hear his voice until you are saved. Now, I want you to hear me. What I mean by that, Jesus was sent by God. And he lived a perfect life because it was God in the flesh. And he died on the cross for your sins and for my sins. He died on that cross for our sins. And then he rose from the dead for you and for me. And that's something you can never get tired of talking about. It's the greatest story ever told. And I want you to immerse yourself in that moment. If you've never received him, this morning might be your moment. In fact, we're going to sing a song, and then Grayson is going to call anyone up who wants to receive Christ. And this could be your morning to do it. But if you've been a Christian for a while, but somehow you've gotten distracted, and you've been sitting here setting up your fantasy football team and checking the waiver wire while I've been preaching, I want you to just take a moment this week to put the phone down, to pick up his word, and sit at his feet. Would you pray with me? Father, you're in control of everything. There's nothing that you don't know. There's nothing that you don't have control of or over. And God, I'm praying that this morning that we would take seriously your word, to get to know you, to experience living by faith, even when it comes to our time, even when it comes to creating margin to not do some things so that we can do time with you. And God, that you would take care of the things that we didn't do because you're in control of the whole universe, that we would have faith, God, that you have the ability to put the stars and the earth into place, so that if it doesn't rotate a little bit, we'd all fry, or rotate another different way and we all freeze. God, you have the power to do that, and you also have the power to make our lives have margin. And you designed us for peace. You designed us to rest in you. You designed us to come together in worship and to find you for who you are. And we love you and we worship you for that, God. And we're asking you to do even more than we ever hoped for or asked, because you are our God and you are our King. In Jesus' name we pray. Imagine what would happen if we sat at the feet of Jesus instead of the feet of the culture. We sat at the feet of Jesus instead of the feet of our relationships. We sat at the feet of Jesus instead of the feet of our work. And we let Jesus take care of our work, our relationships, our future, and we had focus on him, the eternal one. That's what we're about here at Wells Branch Community Church. And if you want to be a part of that, we have our membership class right there in the first classroom in the lobby here, right after we get done tearing down. And we want you to be a part of something that pushes back the darkness because of the light that we have within. We can make a difference in this city by showing the city what worship looks like. And Jesus is a crutch that we need daily, not just in the crisis. Would you receive the benediction? Go. And be a people who invest first at the feet of Jesus. Go and be a people who give your best time, your best effort to Jesus. Go and put all your worries at his feet. Go and put all your cares at his feet and let him take care of it all. And that way we can push back the darkness and have an awesome week of worship. Here's